A recent incident involving a young man smashing a train window has gone viral on Chinese social media, drawing widespread attention and discussion. The man reportedly broke the window due to extreme heat inside the carriage, but was subsequently taken to a local police station. The case quickly sparked heated debate online, with the vast majority of netizens expressing support for the young man's actions. At around 8:28 p.m. on July 2nd, a K1473 passenger train derailed due to an unexpected incident, forcing the train to halt for nearly 3 hours at a small station without a platform. In response, the train's supervisor immediately gathered the crew to initiate emergency procedures, sealing all exits and restricting movement. However, during the wait, the air conditioning and ventilation systems inside the carriages failed, leaving hundreds of passengers trapped in sweltering, airless conditions. Video footage taken by passengers shows the carriage dimly lit, with steam-like mist fogging up the camera lens due to the heat. Many passengers could be heard shouting at the train staff, begging for the doors to be opened. The train attendants claimed that, for safety reasons, the doors could not be opened at the moment, with temperatures inside the sealed carriages approaching 40 degrees Celsius. Passengers were drenched in sweat, their clothes soaked through. The carriages, packed to capacity, felt more like stifling steam chambers. Some passengers began experiencing difficulty breathing, dizziness, and symptoms of heat stroke. Although the crew attempted to calm the situation by distributing bottled water and wiping sweat from elderly and child passengers, the ventilation issue remained unresolved. At one point, some suggested briefly opening the doors just to let in some fresh air, promising not to disembark, as even fully grown adults were close to passing out, let alone the elderly and children on board. But this request was repeatedly denied by the staff. In the stifling heat of carriage number 3, one young man, after several failed attempts to negotiate with the crew to open a window, grabbed an emergency safety hammer and smashed the window glass. Despite being stopped by staff, he insisted and eventually broke the window. The moment fresh air rushed in, the entire carriage burst into applause and cheers, with some passengers calling him a hero.
不要拍，好吧，各位不要拍，不要拍，好吧。
什么不要拍？
不是我拍跟你有什么关系呢？
你开个门，我们说我们有人下去嘛，你可以讲一下我们，对吧？我们说在车里又不下去，对吧？
你不要了，
要不然我们就砸玻璃了。
他们要砸玻璃了，
受不了了，不是。
关了，下回你关了，你关了，
你赶紧讲吧。
我讲了的，他过来了呢。 哎呀，过来了！你头都已经开始晕了，真开始晕了。
人受不了啊，
人都受不了了。这么多人哦！
你门开一下，我们不下去不就好了吗？
哎，对，知道了。那个小的这个他上面同意我开门了，这不是那个了，是不啦？
不要下去。
去，莫搞，真的这个莫搞，这个，我打，再管。拿去，好。 快，他在砸玻璃了！好，受不了了！英雄！
However, shortly after the incident, the young man was taken away by police, a move that instantly triggered a wave of outrage on social media, with countless netizens voicing their support for the young man and condemning the handling of the situation. This whole incident blew up online, with people slamming the railway staff for blindly sticking to the rules without caring about the passengers. On the other hand, the guy who smashed the window may have broken the rules, but he did it to treat people like real people, and overnight, he became an online hero. When asked about the incident, most people said they agreed with what the young man did.
I support what the young man did by breaking the window. That's an act of bravery for the greater good. People's lives come first. Everything else, like property, is secondary.
I think he might have acted on impulse, or maybe he was just too anxious. He probably thought that in a sealed carriage, people would quickly suffer from a lack of nutrients and fresh air. Actually, I really agree with what that young man did. Because after all, life is the most important thing. There were so many people on that train and no fresh air. Honestly, I think what he did was right. If it were me, I might have done the same.
Honestly, I can totally understand what he did. In such high temperatures, even young people can hardly stand it, let alone so many elderly people and kids on board. If the heat had gone on for too long, it could have led to even worse consequences.
So, in this incident, one of the biggest controversies is, should people break regulations or even the law when they believe they might be in potential danger? Clearly, the man who broke the window wasn't supposed to do so because he violated traffic regulations. Under normal circumstances, he should face legal consequences, but in such a stifling and overheated train carriage, where people began to feel unwell and even feared for their safety, does his actions still count as illegal? Although the railway authority later stated that their evaluation concluded the situation did not endanger passengers' lives. So, what do you think how this case should be handled in this situation? Let's hear what professional lawyers have to say. A member of the Bar Association shared their perspective on the incident from a legal standpoint.
I believe the man's act of breaking the window falls under the category of emergency avoidance as defined by Chinese law. According to the law, emergency avoidance refers to an action taken to protect the interests of the state, the public, oneself, or others, such as personal safety or property, from ongoing danger, even if it causes relatively minor harm to a lawful interest. In this incident, the man broke the window to allow passengers inside the carriage to breathe fresh air and avoid physical harm, which qualifies as an emergency avoidance situation. Under China's civil law, any damage caused by emergency avoidance should be borne by the party responsible for creating the danger. According to China's criminal law, if emergency avoidance results in harm to the lawful interests of others, the person taking the action shall not bear criminal responsibility. In this case, since the train incident caused the windows to be inoperable and pose potential health risks to the passengers, the resulting losses should be the responsibility of the railway department.
A well-known lawyer named Luo Xiang also shared his legal opinion on this matter online. He stated that, according to media reports, in a situation where the train carriage was extremely hot and posed a threat to the passengers' lives, breaking a window to allow ventilation and save lives could potentially be classified as necessity under the law. He explained that necessity is defined as an act taken as a last resort to protect national or public interests, or the personal rights, property, or other lawful rights of oneself or others from an imminent danger, and any resulting damage does not incur criminal liability. Such acts can be taken to protect one's own interests, those of others, or public and national interests. In this case, since the extreme heat inside the train could pose a potential threat to life and safety, the young man's action of breaking the window in such a situation could be considered an act of necessity and therefore would not constitute a criminal offense.
If you look at the opinions of netizens on Chinese social media, most people are supportive of the young man's actions. One netizen even called him a hero, saying, "Someone who acts for the good of the people deserves to be titled hero. A hero should be chosen by the people, not just officially designated. He not only helped the passengers escape danger, but also set an example by breaking the window, which serves as a lesson for the public. He truly deserves this title. As a Chinese citizen, I will be the first to call him people's hero."
Another netizen questioned, "What's wrong with people trying to save themselves? Why did the train staff have to rigidly forbid opening the windows? Didn't you see how much those people were sweating? Are you really going to wait until someone dies? There were so many elderly people and children on that train." Another netizen commented that although the train attendants refused to open the door, you can't really blame them. They could only follow orders from their superiors. If the leaders said the door couldn't be opened, then it couldn't be opened, unless the attendants themselves felt they were also about to die, in which case they might risk their jobs to save their own lives. Some other netizens also expressed their admiration, saying, "I truly admire the young man for daring to take responsibility and act despite the risk of punishment. I just hope that Chinese society can have more people like him." After the incident, the railway authorities announced that the police had given the man a verbal warning and educational criticism, but did not detain him. Meanwhile, the railway staff posted a statement on social media claiming, "Opening the train doors could pose a risk of passengers falling off and getting injured. Although it was hot inside the carriage, it did not reach the emergency level that would require immediately opening the doors or breaking the windows." However, this explanation was heavily criticized by netizens.
工作人员研判，车内虽闷热，但
The staff assessed that although it was stuffy inside, it hadn't reached the emergency level requiring the doors to be opened or the windows to be broken. Interesting. Who made that decision, and based on what? What was the actual temperature reading inside the carriage at the time? Can the emergency plan be made public? And what exactly are the conditions to trigger such an emergency plan? Another question. How do you know we opened the window to jump off the train and not simply to get some fresh air and cool down? So that passenger in his 50s 50s who was feeling dizzy didn't deserve to have the door opened? And what if there were elderly passengers in their 60s or 70s, or even a 3 or 4-year-old child feeling unwell? Would none of them deserve to have the door opened either?
Not long after, an article published on China.com, a state-run media outlet controlled by the Communist Party, titled, "Breaking a Window is not a heroic act of self-rescue and emotional outbursts should have limits," began circulating online, drawing public attention. The article argued that true heroism lies not in wielding a hammer to break the rules, but in becoming a guardian of order in the midst of hardship. Yet, many netizens questioned this view, asking, "The train was derailed after a collision with a freight train and lost ventilation for 3 hours. How long are passengers expected to quietly wait and maintain order?" Some even connected the incident to the well-known Chinese story of Sima Guang breaking the vat. In this classic tale, 7-year-old Sima Guang was playing in his family's courtyard when a friend accidentally fell into a large water vat. While the other children panicked and fled, Sima Guang quickly picked up a stone, smashed the vat, and saved his friend. Netizens sarcastically asked, was Sima Guang also just losing control of his emotions back then? Interestingly, by now, many online discussions and posts criticizing that article have already been removed, presumably for failing to pass censorship. What this incident ultimately reveals is a deeper issue within Chinese society. In the face of emergencies, should rules be broken for the sake of human life, or should regulations always be strictly followed? And more importantly, within such a rigid system, should you act morally and put people first, or simply follow the system you're dictated?